Hello everyone, how are you? On Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, the activist Charlie Kirk was killed during an event in which Charlie Kirk was participating. In case you didn't know him or anything, he was a right-wing activist with a conservative ideology, basically, who was very well known, very famous within his field. He had a lot of followers. I think on YouTube he had about 4 million followers, and on TikTok he was around the same as well. He hosted several shows and podcasts to share his opinions. Obviously, this opinion really polarized the audience. There were people who loved him, people who said they totally agreed with him, and people who hated him and said the worst things about him. What did he do for a living? Basically this, and he also had the habit of going to different universities and organizing live debates. He would sit with a microphone as people with opposing views came to debate, ask questions, and discuss his answers. On Wednesday, he was doing this during a debate he was holding at the University of Utah, and suddenly he was shot in the neck. I think we've all seen that video. It started circulating everywhere. There wasn't much that could be done. It was a direct shot. Here, I think it was to the carotid artery. He bled out right away. Though they got him to the hospital, there wasn't much they could do since he had lost so much blood. He died that same day, hours after the attack. And finally, on Friday, September 12th, 2025, the culprit, the attacker, the person who fired the shot was found and identified as Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old young man. And a whole debate started. I already made a video about it on my other channel, El Dia. In case you don't know it or anything like that, I think I'm going to put the video here at the end because I was going to leave it as a link for you to go watch it. But people are very lazy. People are really, really lazy. That video talks a lot about Charlie Kirk's biography, basically. We cover absolutely his entire career from when he was born until his passing. And we also talk about the killer of the shooter, Tyler Robinson, and we give a lot more details. A nice debate started in the comments. Are they killing each other? What I wanted to show you is a couple of details about things that have been coming up today regarding this crime, this murder. Mainly on the social network now called X, which I'll always call Twitter. One of the little things I saved was this video of Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is another one. Another commentator, very similar to Charlie Kirk, who is also a commentator. A right-wing influencer, also conservative, but even more right-wing and even more conservative than Charlie Kirk. In fact, many people label him as a far-right influencer, to the point that he declared himself and still declares himself an enemy of Charlie Kirk. Even though they're on the same side, he considers himself an enemy because he didn't think Charlie Kirk was right-wing enough. He's a much more controversial communicator. For example, I tried to find subtitled TikTok videos of him to show you. And his content isn't on TikTok. I mean, it's considered hate content, which is why TikTok doesn't allow his videos to appear on their platform. When, for example, Charlie Kirk is on TikTok and has his own page and everything, in this video, in this statement he made, he talked about Charlie Kirk. He said he was his enemy. However, he obviously condemned what happened and did something that got people talking. Which has to do with what has been talked about in recent days about which movement the shooter belonged to. Which movement did this young man here belong to? Tyler Robinson, who is this young man who was the one who ultimately fired the shot that ended Charlie Kirk's life. Here you can see a receipt for a donation that Tyler Robinson had made to Donald Trump's campaign. He had donated $224. And this is where it starts to draw attention. It really starts to draw everyone's attention, right? Obviously, the logical assumption would be that he was attacked by someone with an opposing ideology. Actually, that's not true. Apparently, this guy was also on our side. So what people are saying is that this guy, Tyler Robinson, also had the same ideology, but he was much more radicalized. And he belonged to the followers of this man right here, Nick Fuentes. Who is this influencer? Here? Nick Fuentes apparently had a group of fans called the Groypers. The Groypers, sometimes called the Groyper Army, are a group of far-right activists, white nationalists and Christian nationalists, led by Nick Fuentes. Its members have tried to introduce far-right politics into mainstream conservatism in the United States, and they participated in the Capitol attack on January 6th and the protests that preceded it. They have attacked other conservative groups and individuals whose agendas they consider too moderate and not racist or nationalist enough. The Groyper movement has been called nationalist, white, homophobic, nativist, fascist, sexist, anti-Semitic, and an effort to reshape the declining far right. That's basically it. A group of memers, a group of people you find on internet forums like 4chan and others. They're followers of this guy we have here, Nick Fuentes. And what did Nick Fuentes do? In this statement, obviously he came out to say that he condemned this attack, he condemned any act of violence, and that if you were a follower of his who was planning to carry out any kind of attack with weapons or anything like that, he strongly condemned you. He said he wanted no part in what you were doing. Many people say that what he's doing is just covering himself so he doesn't have to testify in case there's a trial or something. And it turns out that this guy, the shooter, let's remember he's alive, he was arrested, he was turned in by his father. And what if he says something about him? He'll have this video saying, I have nothing to do with it, I'm innocent, I said this in the video. Many online say it's this guy's way of covering himself. Nick Fuentes. In case they end up blaming him if the shooter says he's a fan of his. Evidence that he was a Groyper is somewhat vague. These comparisons with memes, for example, saying that this photo was taken imitating this meme, and also evidence of phrases written on the bullets he was going to use against Charlie. He ended up using one, but he had several more. And they had memes, many of them had video game commands. Apparently, he was a fan of a video game called Hell's Divers 2, Hell's Divers 2, and he had commands from that video game or phrases that are used there. Even the song Bella Ciao, which you probably know from Money Heist, but apparently it's used in one of the versions of this video game that's circulating. Photos of Tyler Robinson, here dressed up as Donald Trump, that is, an inflatable Donald Trump with his father. And he had obviously been trained to handle weapons since he was very young, which is why he had such lethal accuracy when he fired the shot. And here's a very interesting thought that everyone is debating. I find it super interesting, and I think it's worth talking about this. Many people are debating whether the shooter of Charlie Kirk was from the left or the right. If he was right-wing, the family was conservative. But he has become left-wing in recent times, influenced by college or by his roommate or whatever. And others are saying, no, wasn't he right-wing, but actually more extreme right-wing, so that's why he fired the shot. But what many are pointing out is that it doesn't really matter whether he was left-wing or right-wing, it doesn't matter. They keep kicking the ball back and forth, passing the blame to each other to wash their hands of it. But what ultimately draws attention, and what ultimately matters, which is what this user, Adam Mockler, is debating and presenting here on X, is that the shooter had memes written on his bullets. What does this mean? Basically, it means that there's a whole generation, a Generation Z, if you will, influenced who grew up directly with the internet, grew up with digital culture, and what has been happening on the internet in recent years. That went from being that paradise, which it was at the beginning. I remember it very well, what the internet was like many years ago when it started in 2000, to what it is now. To become a place full of hate, full of violence, a place where a video like this one, the one about the murder, starts circulating everywhere. A place where all the time, if you're on X or on Twitter, there are always fights, accusations, violence. Constantly back and forth. And it's always building up. Let's say this culture of going to fight, of going to confront others, this culture filled with hate, which is basically what it is. I mean, personally, I noticed that on the new X platform, compared to what the old Twitter was, which had much more control, and so on. It's pure hate. Literally, it's hate all the time. All the time we're going to attack this person. All the time we're going to fight about this. all the time. Videos making memes or mocking this person or that one, someone else attacking another, someone else uploading a video, insulting this one, insulting. All the time it's crossfire, violence one against another, and obviously a young person. A young person, like in the case of the shooter, who maybe didn't have much of a social life and spent a lot of his time on the internet, he starts to be influenced by everything he sees on the internet. Not having friends, not having another opinion, another point of view, he starts to become biased because of what the algorithm is. It's clear that if you start consuming a certain type of content, the algorithm more or less understands what you're consuming. It overwhelms you with similar things, leaving you stuck in a loop. That didn't used to happen online. Previously, the internet had diverse thoughts and voices. You didn't get everything from one place. Many people don't realize how social networks or algorithms work. If you consume something related to a certain type of thinking, it starts showing you everything from the same thing. Because the algorithm of X or TikTok or whatever quickly understands how you think. What do you like to watch? It keeps you on that network by showing you more content to keep you happy. Many young people don't realize this and develop biased thinking. A circular way of thinking, always repetitive, always scrolling, the same thoughts. And they think and they believe that the whole world thinks like that. They think everyone thinks like that. And that all the people they know or that they follow on the internet or whatever are going to think the same way they do. Because their brain and their mind are completely biased by the algorithm. And that apparently is what happened in this case. For me, it's not about right wing or left wing. That's not the debate. The debate is that social networks are increasingly alienating people. And they're taking the world to a point of violence that could escalate even further. And things like this happen, like what just happened here. And that's what's being debated right now on the internet, and that's the information. And I personally think that this reflection is much more important. Yes, before knowing what ideologies the shooter had or anything else, I think it's much more important to reflect a bit on that. About the power of algorithms of memes. And what happens to someone like him, 22 years old, raised in this era, who only knew a world shaped by algorithms and the internet. And he grew up totally influenced by that violence that was constantly bombarded into his head. This is what is known so far about Charlie Kirk and his shooter. For now, he is under arrest. He was turned in by his father. What? After seeing the security footage that was going around. And if you want to know more, I'm going to leave you a video below, which is the video we made for the day. A video that's a little long, but I think it's interesting and has a lot of information about it, about Charlie Kirk and about the shooter. If more material is released, we'll make a second part, either here or on the day. We're not sure yet. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I think I don't have anything else. I think that's it. We made a 1-hour documentary about the Twin Towers. If YouTube didn't suggest it, I'll put it at the end of this video so you can watch it. If you don't type Twin Towers, Magnus Mephisto will likely appear in the search. Let's see what we've prepared for that day. September 10th, 2025. The hallways of Utah Valley University were filled with whispers, laughter, and the echo of hurried footsteps. Students and professors were heading to the main auditorium to witness one of the most anticipated athletes of the year. An event where Charlie Kirk, a youth leader, conservative, and polarizing figure, was going to challenge ideas, provoke reflection, and as always, generate controversy. All under the motto of "Prove me wrong." This format was already a classic. Charlie sat in a huge white tent, microphone in hand. He debated with leftist students, always emphasizing the values of capitalism and his apathy toward minority struggles or sexual dissidence movements. The videos of those debates later ended up on YouTube, Instagram, or X, where his followers and detractors made sure to share them. Some used them as an ideological symbol, while others harshly criticized them. No one expected that day, which seemed like just another chapter in the story of an influential activist and friend of President Trump, to end in tragedy. When a gunshot rang out at the scene, chaos was inevitable. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. How did this young man's meteoric career unfold? Which projects catapulted him as a voice of authority? What is known about his attacker and how was he caught? Did a book really predict the attack? Why did Trump's words of condolence arouse the public's distrust? To answer these and other questions, we need to go back to September 10, 2025, the day Charlie Kirk was killed. Before continuing, note that this story unfolds in the present tense. So it may happen that some of the information provided in this report is incomplete or inaccurate. If you're interested in the topic and want us to keep investigating it, you can comment Tirador in the comments. And now, let's begin. The first steps of an activist. Charlie James Kirk was born on October 14, 1993 in Arlington Heights, Illinois, an affluent suburb in the Chicago metropolitan area. He grew up in Prospect Heights, a neighborhood with quiet streets and red brick houses, surrounded by parks and well-rated schools. His parents, with professions oriented toward service and creativity, had a profound impact on his childhood. He says his mother, a mental health counselor, taught him to observe the mind and understand emotions and motivations. His father, an architect, introduced him to the world of planning, structure, and the ambition to leave a tangible mark on the world. Since childhood, Charlie had an unusual interest in politics and debates. Unlike other kids who preferred video games or sports, he consumed editorial news programs, learning to identify what he considered ideological biases and to question the information presented to him. This early curiosity led him to write his first political text, criticizing the way textbooks addressed certain topics. In high school, Kirk also excelled in extracurricular activities that strengthened his discipline and leadership. He became an Eagle Scout, reaching the pinnacle of the most prestigious program in the Boy Scouts. This showed his organizational skills and perseverance while giving him contacts and abilities he later used in political activism. During his teenage years, Charlie began to get more deeply involved in local and state political campaigns. He took part in Mark Kirk's 2010 Illinois Senate campaign, helping with promotion and logistics. It was during these years that his political calling began to solidify. He understood that organization, strategy, and narrative were fundamental tools to influence public opinion. Meanwhile, his personality was emerging as complex and polarizing. Charlie had an unusual sense for his age and a confrontational style that sometimes made teachers and classmates uncomfortable. His early articles and columns, especially those published in outlets like Breitbart News, denouncing what he perceived as liberal bias in school textbooks, caught the attention of national conservative figures. His appearance on Fox Business during his senior year of high school was a decisive moment, as it projected him onto a larger stage and established him as a young activist willing to challenge. At 18, while other kids his age were still exploring careers and extracurricular activities, Charlie made a decision that would shape his destiny: to found Turning Point United States of America. Inspired by his experience in political campaigns and by the feeling that young conservative voices were systematically ignored at universities across the United States, Charlie decided to create an organization capable of changing that landscape. The beginning was modest but strategic. From his parents' garage in Prospect Heights, with a laptop and a phone, he began reaching out to students, planning events, and looking for allies. His vision was clear: to mobilize, educate, and empower conservative youth to defend their ideas. The political left dominated the field. It wasn't just about debates, it was about creating a national network that could influence politics and public opinion from the ground up. The first major financial boost came thanks to Foster Fries, a businessman and Republican donor who recognized Charlie's passion and ambition. The financial support allowed the group to move out of the garage and organize its first events professionally, which quickly attracted the attention of students. Conservative media. Kirk initially focused on launching campaigns and debates at universities. The idea was simple but provocative: to invite students to question their political beliefs from a conservative perspective, encouraging intense discussions and media confrontations that quickly went viral. This direct, provocative approach not only increased the visibility of his movement, but also made Kirk a role model for young activists. Under his leadership, Turning Point United States of America grew at a rapid pace. By 2015, the organization had branches at many universities and a network of student volunteers replicating Kirk's methods nationwide. His ability to connect with disenchanted young people, understand their concerns, and offer them a space where their ideas were heard became the cornerstone of his success. In turn, every debate, every viral video, and every media appearance was carefully calculated to generate impact. His ability to adapt to social media, produce engaging content, and maintain a consistent message made him a master of modern political communication. However, this growth also brought criticism. Some accused him of fostering polarization and prioritizing visibility over constructive debate. Others questioned the organization's funding and the tactics used to influence college campuses. Even so, for many young conservatives, Charlie represented a strong, clear, and fearless voice. One way or another, what had started as a youth project soon became a platform capable of mobilizing millions. Establish high-level political contacts and catapult Charlie Kirk, who decided to make the most of all this exposure. Media influence. Charlie understood that to preserve and consolidate his influence, it wasn't enough to organize debates and events at universities. The key was in the media. Since he was young, he had shown a fascination with how ideas could shape public opinion, and how a convincing voice could resonate beyond the physical space. Thus, Kirk immersed himself in the world of podcasts, television, and social media, building a communication ecosystem that would make him a national figure. Kirk's podcast became his most powerful platform through shows like Charlie Kirk Live and Turning Point Daily. He provided ongoing political analysis, interviews, and commentary on current events, always from a conservative viewpoint. His style was designed to keep the attention of a young audience, used to fast information and media confrontation. Kirk didn't just discuss politics, he connected with young people by addressing their concerns and frustrations. He criticized perceived biases in education, culture, and media, while also promoting traditional values. Plain and simple, he believed that people of color, Muslims, and trans people, among other groups, were trash polluting the world. This combination of political analysis with an accessible and confrontational tone earned him a loyal following, many of them university students or recent graduates who saw him as an ideological mentor. At the same time, Kirk wrote several books that expanded his reach beyond podcasts and university campuses. Publications like Campus Battlefield and the Make America Great Again doctrine explored his views on youth politics and the need to challenge what he considered the liberal hegemony in American culture. His books got mixed reviews. Conservatives praised them as guides for political action, while critics and liberal media said Kirk oversimplified ideologies. Kirk stayed relevant by dominating the digital ecosystem. His strategy included short videos, live interviews, and political confrontations, which were often shared by thousands of followers within hours. His skill in connecting with young people and generating controversy built a leadership that would be remembered, debated, and ultimately, tragically cut short. Alliance with Trump. As Turning Point United States of America established itself as an influential youth movement, Charlie Kirk began to forge strategic connections with high-profile political figures. The most prominent of these was his relationship with Donald Trump. Since the 2016 presidential campaign, Kirk saw American politics reaching a turning point. Trump represented a disruptive and direct phenomenon, and Kirk saw in him a natural ally. Both shared the ability to communicate clearly, provocatively, and effectively with an audience that often felt ignored by traditional media. During that campaign, Kirk and his group organized support events, mobilized college students, and created digital content that amplified the pro-Trump narrative. Their influence did not go unnoticed. By 2020, Trump appointed him to a commission on patriotic education, recognizing Kirk's impact on youth, as well as his ability to convey conservative values. This position allowed him to enter the inner circles of national politics, increasing his visibility and legitimacy as a youth leader. The relationship with Trump led to many public appearances. Kirk became a keynote speaker at key administration events and was invited to participate in inaugurations and high-level political conferences. He basically became a strategic asset to mobilize support in universities and cities where the conservative presence was limited. Around that time, Kirk also faced more and more criticism from thinkers and social sectors who continued to see him as a good creator of viral videos, but as a negative figure when it came to seeking empathy. Political discussions have changed recently, with new phenomena challenging the traditional logic of exchanging ideas. Some view Kirk as a social innovator and pioneer who found a way to express himself in a fast-paced, hostile modern world. Others view him as someone who blindly fueled that machine without considering the consequences. Knowing that his mere presence could generate both love and hate, Kirk had warned on more than one occasion that he feared for his safety. Even so, he never stopped performing live, and recently he increased his appearances at universities, with the plan to continue supporting the various Trump campaigns. That's how he ended up in Utah on September 10, 2025. He arrived smiling, ready to do what he did best, discuss politics and challenge the audience to prove him wrong. He didn't know it would be the last time he'd do it, and that's how our story goes back to the beginning. That day, expected to be just another debate or conference on Charlie Kirk's schedule, became a moment that shook the United States.
Utah Valley University in Orem was getting ready for one of the events led by the 31-year-old influencer.
However, it would all end in tragedy. During the debate, a sniper opened fire. Charlie was hit in the neck and fell to the ground in front of their horrified audience. Emergency services arrived quickly and took him to the hospital, but attempts to save him were unsuccessful. His death was confirmed shortly after, leaving an immediate void in the conservative community and a sense of disbelief throughout the country. The attack was classified by the authorities as a political assassination, given the public and media profile of the victim. The media coverage was massive, with live broadcasts, testimonies from students who were present, and analyses about the impact this loss would have on youth and national politics. The news shocked political leaders, the media, and millions of Kirk's followers. The news shocked political leaders, issued a statement describing Charlie as a brave young man, a visionary leader, and a tireless advocate for conservative youth. The liberal diner committed suicide in Con Acción Melody Concholi. The viewers from the United States. Thus, the entire video in which the American president declared this was not without debate. The reason? It is believed that it was made with artificial intelligence. This, for many, breaks the bond of trust that should exist between a leader and the people. On social media, tributes multiplied, with compilation videos of his debates and messages from students describing how Kirk had inspired them to get involved in politics. The polarization that characterized him in life was also reflected in the reaction to his death. Admiration and sorrow contrasted with critical debate about his style and strategies. Faced with the fact that a portion of the youth celebrated the attack, the United States authorities warned that they would punish anyone who did not respect the mourning. Messages from people who mentioned the irony that Kirk supported the free carrying of weapons were also censored, and he had mentioned on more than one occasion that he preferred the... Beyond these heated issues, all eyes turned to the search for the attacker.
Who fired?
The death of Charlie Kirk unleashed not only pain and shock, but also an intense search for the person responsible. The authorities faced a complex scenario: a sniper who had managed to quickly flee the scene of the attack. From the very beginning, the police and the FBI determined that it was a premeditated murder, with motivations that could be linked to politics, ideology, and the public notoriety of the victim. On September 12, just 2 days after the attack, President Donald Trump announced that a suspect had been arrested, Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old resident of Utah. The news shocked the country once again, and the media began to investigate his life and possible motivations. Robinson had managed to evade the police for more than 24 hours. His capture was made possible thanks to family cooperation. He was recognized by someone close to him and was finally handed over to the authorities by his father. The investigation revealed that Robinson acted with a long-range weapon, a Mauser 30-06 bolt-action rifle, and that the recovered cartridges had inscriptions with messages related to topics such as transgender issues and anti-fascism, which fueled speculation about his motivation. In the magazine of the rifle used, authorities found other unused bullet casings that contained messages like, "Hey fascist, catch it. If you can read this, are you gay? Ha ha ha," or also, "Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao." A popular Italian song turned into a partisan anthem of resistance against Mussolini's fascism and the Nazi occupation during World War I. The investigators also released surveillance footage of a person of interest matching Robinson, dressed in dark clothing and a distinctive emblem on his chest. The speed with which he was identified and arrested allowed the authorities to begin reconstructing the sequence of events and the possible planning behind the attack. Despite this evidence, many details remained unclear. The official investigation focused on determining whether Robinson acted alone or if there was complicity, as well as clarifying the connection between his personal motivations and the notoriety of Kirk as a conservative youth leader. From the very beginning, unconfirmed theories emerged on social media and alternative outlets. Some pointed to possible links with radical groups, others suggested ideological motivations or even broader conspiracies. Although the police insisted that Robinson had acted alone, the circulation of rumors about possible accomplices, support networks, or conspiracies prior to the attack increased the confusion. At the time this report was written, it was known that Robinson had sympathized with Trump for years, but later his ideas became more radical and extremist. Others point out that he was still a Republican, that his father is a Mormon and a former police officer, and that in fact his entire upbringing had been conservative. While new information is expected to emerge, many other internet users actually gave their opinions. A day before Kirk was murdered, a book that talked about that very episode had gone on sale. Yes, you heard that right, a prophetic book. A news story that gained traction online was the appearance of a book titled The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, a comprehensive account of the Utah Valley University attack, the aftermath, and America's response. The translation would be The Shooting of Charlie Kirk, a comprehensive account of the Utah Valley University attack, the aftermath, and the response of the United States. The disturbing part was the book was attributed to Anastasia J. Casey. Amazon, with a publication date of September 9, 2025, one day before Kirk's murder. The rapid appearance of the book and its detailed content about the attack raised suspicions about a possible prophecy or prior knowledge of the event. Amazon quickly removed the listing, explaining that it was a technical error that showed an incorrect date. However, the controversy persisted and some users pointed out that the author had ties to an artificial intelligence company, which added an extra layer of mystery to the situation. The matter remains an enigma, while new developments are awaited. It's important to stress that Charlie Kirk's murder should not be seen as an isolated event. His death adds to a series of events that show how gun violence has become intertwined with the political life of the United States, a country where ideological differences, amplified by polarization and media exposure, seem increasingly likely to be resolved with crossfire. In recent years, attacks against public figures have become a constant echo in a nation living in tension. Earlier this year, 2 Democratic state legislators in Minnesota were shot in their own homes. One of them did not survive the wounds. The incident sparked a deep debate about the safety of public representatives, but it was soon overshadowed by new tragedies. Former President Donald Trump was also targeted by violence. He survived 2 assassination attempts last year, one of them in Butler, Pennsylvania. It left a lasting image in the collective memory. Trump with a bullet graze on his face, surrounded by chaos and blood. The attack is disturbingly similar to the assassination attempt on Charlie Kirk in Utah. The list continues. In 2022, An assailant armed with a hammer broke into the home of Nancy Pelosi, who was then the Speaker of the House, and brutally attacked her husband. And a few years earlier, in 2017, a man opened fire on Republican congressmen while they were practicing baseball in Virginia, injuring several of them, and instilling the idea that no space, no matter how ordinary it may seem, is free from the specter of political violence. The assassination of Kirk, then, is not just the story of a conservative leader gunned down in the middle of a debate. It is also a reflection of a broader social fracture, a country where ideological differences aren't simply set aside. They are debated at the polls and in the media, but all too often settled by force. Charlie Kirk's influence continued after his death. Turning Point United States of America will continue its work mobilizing millions of young people and consolidating the infrastructure that Kirk had built since his early days in his parents' garage. His focus on youth activism, media confrontation, and building student networks became a replicable and lasting model. In addition, his life and tragic end inspired reflections on the vulnerability of public figures. In a polarized political climate, the power of young leaders and the way modern politics intertwines with media, social networks, and direct activism. Charlie became a symbol for many people. For some, a symbol of youthful leadership, of courage in the face of adversity, and of how one voice can transform the political perception of an entire generation. For this group today, Kirk is on his way to becoming a martyr. For others, his career and his end are symbols that you can't expect violent rhetoric not to generate equally violent actions. Those who hold this view believe it's urgent to reevaluate political discourse, as encouraging grievance dooms us. To put it another way, how many more deaths will be necessary for the world to truly and deeply confront the close link between politics, hate speech, and armed violence?